Well, hello there. Welcome back to another episode of the Working Mama podcast. This week, I have Dr. Ellen Ford as a guest who has just released a book called #Work School Hours. I have to say, Ellen is from New Zealand and she has had the most amazing career to date. She's been in the army, got an MBA and doctorate, and you name it, she's done it. And now she's written a book, but she's so passionate, and you'll hear her passion come through about supporting working mums particularly, and really demystifying and debunking some of those systems and structures that are around us. If you're a long-time listener on the podcast, you would know that this is one of my pet peeves as well. Also then the discussions around outputs rather than the hours that you work. Because as you know, as a working mum, you're probably one of the most productive people, if not the most productive person in the office. So without further ado, I'll let you get into it. I'll put all the links to her book in the show notes. But as always, if you'd be able to leave a rating or review or pass it on to a friend, that would be absolutely amazing. Just so we can support more women and help them have the belief and that they can actually have the support around them that they can be a mum and also have a career. Have an amazing day, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Welcome to the Working Mama podcast, a show that provides real-world tips, tricks, and advice to all working mamas on how they can have a career, family, and hopefully one day break the glass ceiling. Welcome, Ellen. Welcome to the Working Mama podcast. How's your day going so far?
Yay, good actually. I've just been having some fun meetings this morning and I'm super excited to be on this podcast with you.
I cannot wait. I've actually been following your journey for a little bit of time and I love your concept around working school hours, particularly now as a mum who has a preppy and school hours, as we were just chatting before we started click record. It's a whole new ball game, but we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
When I was doing some research around you, you've had the most amazing career already. So do you want to just tell people what's been your career journey so far and how did you end up where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I started my career in the army. So I was actually, I'm a New Zealander, you can tell. So New Zealand Army, but I actually did all my training on exchange in Australia. So I spent 5 years and 4 in Canberra and a year in Sydney at the Australian Defence Force Academy, ADFA, and then RMC Duntroon. So I did 10 years in the army leading soldiers who were like construction soldiers. Had a ball, traveled the world, amazing deployments, including Afghanistan, time in Antarctica, Pacific Islands, and it was amazing. Just, doing really cool work with construction soldiers, and I loved it. Then as I came out of the army, I did both my MBA and then my PhD focused on leadership. I was a leader in the army. I'm really passionate and interested in how do you lead people in a way that is good for them and good for the organization. And it was that research journey that kind of led me to the stuff that I'm doing now. Was I realized that not everybody in the workplace is always getting the best experiences and therefore not actually doing their best work. I ended up moonlighting for the New Zealand Army. I was working as a business consultant at that point and helped them with how to improve some of their gender inclusion policies and initiatives. And then that kind of snowballed. I ended up doing this massive postdoctoral piece of research on the experiences of working parents, hence our connection for this. And a couple of years ago, I believe that the working world can be so much better than what it is. I think that people can have much better experiences, and parents is a big part of it, but actually everybody. And so I was like, stuff it. I think I'm going to have to start my own business. Don't know what it looks like yet, but I'm going to follow this passion of trying to make the working world better. And that is what I'm now doing. So I work as a speaker and facilitator, trying to change the world.
Yeah. And you've also just written a book. We can't forget about that.
Yes. So I'm so excited, Carina. Yeah. So the book is called #Work School Hours, a revolution for parents, workplaces, and the world. And it basically ties in all my kind of experiences, both leading in the military and in the corporate sector, my business experiences and all my research experiences and other people's stories, and kind of just bundles everything that's in my head into this book. And it's about how we can do work differently. It's not dogmatic saying the world works from 9 till 3. That's kind of far too prescriptive. But it's, just how we can do work differently. And it's targeted not at individuals to fix parents, because actually they're amazing. It's totally designed at fixing the broken structures. I'm really excited. And I have to say, I've got an online course that goes with it. So there's a course specifically for parents in terms of what they can do to help change the structures in their workplace. And there's also a course for people leaders for how they can do a great job at leading their people more inclusive, which includes giving them more flexibility.
So good, because I find sometimes in these scenarios, it's the chicken and egg. Like, you can have the most engaged parent, all right, I want this flexibility. But then if the workforce and the organization isn't meeting them there, it's not this good marriage, and it's, terrible, and it often breaks up. So it's really interesting that you need both sides. And when sometimes when we get into these discussions, the focus is typically on the working mother. What do we need to do? The flexibility and things like that. But it's really, as you say, it's the whole structure. It's the organization, the people leader that also comes together with the working parent.
Yeah, it's not just sort of putting it on the how do we fix the parent, or, or even organizations that are doing some good work. I don't want to knock it, who are how do we support the working parent? And that's certainly better than not. But it's still kind of all about the individual, not actually the system isn't working. And that's the space that I'm in, is how do we change the system to work better for everybody?
It's funny because even I've had some discussions with people and they're saying, but it's not just about the working parents. Like, I want to be able to go to my soccer training. I want to be able to walk my dog. I want that work-life balance, or I like to say harmony, because I don't think there's really balance of 50-50. But, it's really, how can we have it? And I think, it's probably one of the outcomes of COVID of, well, no, I do actually want to be able to walk around the block, of an afternoon while the sun's still up in the middle of winter. So it's those little things. It is the systems and the structures, because, the 9 till 5 was created 100 years ago for the Industrial Revolution to get people, rather than working, 7 days a week, the 40-hour work week. And I'd have to say our evolutions, the fourth, the tech revolutions and things like that have definitely changed the way that we work.
Well, absolutely. It's so, and just to your first point about it's not just for parents, I totally agree with that. I always say to parents, if you want people to value the fact that you might need to leave work to pick up your kids from school, make sure you also cheerlead someone who's I want to go for a walk, or I want to, as you say, play soccer. It's not just, oh, well, I've got children, so I'm more important. It's really important. Everybody has stuff they care about outside of work. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a construct of work that was designed for a society that doesn't exist anymore. We've evolved and we haven't changed the construct.
Why is that?
So when the construct was created, it was based on the assumption that every household had a dedicated worker, a man, and a dedicated caregiver of children, the woman.
Mother, yep.
And so the person that was going to work was not the same person who needed to worry about collecting kids after school holidays, attending swimming sports. They were basically two different people. But when women entered the workforce in droves, a long time ago, by the way, not just we've just, rocked up recently, women started entering the workforce, but men did not enter the home force with the same level of exuberance.
And they still haven't in some households, even to this day.
Yeah, it was sort of almost this permissive, sure, women are allowed to join as long as you still do everything else at home. But no, actually, it's you've got this whole extra pool of labor who are incredible, and you're still making them fit into the whole round peg square hole situation, and it doesn't work. And so I'm it's time for the next revolution. It's no longer the 40-hour week. We need the next iteration.
And I love the Annabelle Crabb quote from The Wife Chat, where it actually says, and I think it really sums up, like you just said, we expect women to work as though they don't have kids and parent as though they don't have jobs. And it's so true. As you're saying, through those social constructs. I know you've done some research, a lot of research around this. What have you seen as the biggest impact for mothers, particularly around this challenge?
So the way it kind of manifests, so I'll kind of talk through. So the data that I got was from, and I've got it from thousands now, but it started off, I had about 500 parents, predominantly mums, want to share their experiences of being a working parent with me. And they did that because I'd been talking about leadership and some of the struggles of being a parent and a bunch of other topics as well. But that one just resonated, and all these people wanted to share their stories with me. And it wasn't an intentional piece of research. It wasn't something I set out to do. It kind of just came to, people gave their stories to me. And there were 3 different categories that everybody fitted into, Carina, and this is sort of how it manifests. And the first category were parents that were effectively forced out of the workforce. So they could not make work. And when I say work, I mean paid work, because of course we do a lot of unpaid work in the home.
Yeah.
But the paid work, it didn't work. The juggle was just too horrendous. In many cases, the cost of childcare was more expensive than, almost what they'd earn. And so it didn't even make sense financially. So that was sort of the first group. And I'm not talking about people that make the conscious decision to stay at home with their children and make that their full role. That's awesome. This is not about judgment. It's about choice. But this particular category were people where that was not their first choice. Their preference was to be working, but they just couldn't make it work. And so I was like, well, that's a dumb outcome. The second outcome was parents that worked full-time, and that meant their children were in full-time care. And these parents shared, a lot of really heart-wrenching stories. They felt terrible that they weren't there ever, really, for school pickups. They didn't spend time with their kids during school holidays. They missed swimming, sports, cross-country, and they just constantly felt guilty. So I was like, well, that's, dumb outcome number 2. And then the third one, which, Carina, this got under my skin so much, was people that worked part-time. And I'm actually interested on your reaction on this. So these were people that negotiated a fewer hours contract so they could spend some time with their children. For example, 1 day a week with their kid. But what happened is that reduced hours, reduced pay, but no change in what was required of them. So their outputs, their KPIs, their responsibilities, nothing decreased there. And so these parents, they would often end up doing a bit of work outside of their paid hours anyway. But most predominantly, they just became more efficient at their job. So they just got good at getting their shit done in a shorter amount of time. But these parents would tell me how lucky they were. So the first 2 categories, Carina, they would come to me kind of to say how it's tough. Whereas this group, they were like, oh, Ellen, I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm so fortunate that I'm permitted to work part-time, and, I've got friends who can't. So I'm so lucky. And when I heard this over and over again, I was like, this is bullshit. There is nothing lucky about getting a pay cut through the same amount of work. It's just societal-wide gaslighting. And so it was that. At that point, I was on parental leave second time round. So I was breastfeeding my baby. I had a 3-year-old. I was kind of marinating in this. And I was like, this is crap. This is what's happening for all these parents. This is the life ahead of me. And I don't like it. So I want to do something about it.
Yeah.
And so, that's kind of how it manifests, is 3 really dumb outcomes.
Yeah. Look, I can totally relate to the last one of part-time hours, but with the full-time, probably the expectation and the workload. And yeah, it's, I even had someone the other day say to me, how were you lucky enough to work 4 days and things? And I said, because I asked. And I said, when I got a promotion last year, and they're like, oh, we didn't talk to you about work days. I said, well, I'm working 4 days and that's what's like it or lump it. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll have you. So it's one of those things. It's interesting where also people's perception of you've got a day off, or you've got this, or there's elements around it. And I'm like, well, no, you're actually getting a bloody good deal from me, because you're getting the same outputs. You're just paying me less money. So yeah.
And I'm like, I think organizations are getting a free ride on this. We often value and commend people that work longer hours. Like, we sort of have this culture of, we hero worship people who work long hours. And so someone who stays at the office late, we're like, oh wow, they're so dedicated. And I'm not saying that they're not, but often you've got people that are working, say, a 30-hour week, getting the exact same amount of work done, but they're considered, almost like not as loyal, not as committed, not as dedicated. Actually, they're more efficient, and we should be rewarding them for being more efficient at their job. Yet we're kind of, either sometimes overtly, but sometimes kind of subtly penalizing them for the fact that they do that.
Oh, 100%. And then I think the perception, if you work part-time, you're only part-time committed. But it's not. I think you're, as you said, I think that working moms working part-time are the most productive and efficient people we have in our workplaces. No disrespect to others, but we know how to pump out. We're there, we get our job done. We don't go out for the long lunches, the long coffees or anything like that. I got a coffee quickly on the way to work yesterday just because it was 10 to 9 and I'm like, the trains have all worked well and I'm just going to treat myself because then I can then start at 9. Did I really stop? No, I took 15 minutes for lunch. Yes, I left like early at 4:45. And then I still had meetings that night. And I was like, no, this is crazy. It's interesting. But it's also then the perception, if you're working late. But then there is research. I think McKinsey did it a couple of years ago. If you actually work more than 55 hours a week, you actually slowly become less productive. So working more doesn't mean you're more productive either.
Oh, absolutely. Like literally, like the law of diminishing returns. When you keep doing more and more hours, you get fatigued. And so you're nowhere near as good as if you were actually working less hours and were refreshed by doing other things. I mean, I'm not saying that hanging out with your kids is necessarily refreshing. Sometimes that's exhausting as well.
I got to work for a break, and even today's a classic day.
Yeah, so, to be fair on that. But yeah, it's exactly the case. And so people that like do short, sharp bursts of work and they're like, right, I've got a 2-hour window, I'm going to get my work done. They are so much more productive than someone who's just at their desk for the entire day.
So what about the older system and the older mentality of doing things? The classic, no, you do your 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. What do you say to people that may not be on board with the part-time or even the reduced hours, I say in inverted commas, to be able to say, look, endorse this and also respect and probably honor the people that are actually working less but having similar outputs?
Yeah, so, okay, a few things I'd say to that. So the first one I kind of love is that the world has changed, right? So the world is moving towards flexible working, different conditions, and that bus isn't, it's a quote by, I forget the general's name, sorry, but he says, if you don't like change, you'll like irrelevance even less.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
And so, that's the first thing is actually, if you're an organization, if you're a people leader, you actually need to embrace this or you're not going to get talent. That's the first thing. But in terms of why this matters commercially, so my starting point for this was more the social side of it. It was like pissing me off that parents were not getting a fair deal. But my background is in leadership, all my studies and business leadership, and I know that it's got to work commercially, right? I don't for a second think that organizations are only going to think with their heart, feel with their heart.
Yeah.
It has to make good business sense. And so that's the bit that really excites me here is that there is a business case, a really sound business case for why we should, as you just said, value the fact that people have other things that they care about. With people that are happy, make you more money. Like the evidence is absolutely overwhelming in terms of the links between people who have a higher sense of well-being, are happier, actually feel they belong as their whole self, which may include the fact that they're a parent instead of having to hide the fact that they have kids, but actually feel that they are really valued as they are and they're not as stressed. They are far more engaged, far more creative, far more productive, engage with your clients better, and they literally make you more money. So it's not this sort of happy clappy, whiffly waffly. I remember an old school person who was like, I'm not paying my people to be happy, I'm paying them to do their job. And I'm like, oh, you idiot, the two things are correlated.
All right, so you get your back of house in order, you get your front of house, it'll work. You see it in sports teams. If the culture in the back room is not working well, the sports team is not going to perform on the field.
Yeah. And there's also the other one, like we used to think, and I've forgotten the person to credit this to, but we used to think that people were thinking-based creatures who sometimes kind of had some feelings that got in the way and we had to control them. There's all this neuroscience that proves we are feelings-based creatures and sometimes we do some thinking. So when people feel good, they do good work. And it's, it's not a like, we talk about hard skills and soft skills. I don't like the term soft because it makes it sound like it's less important. But those human skills, emotional intelligence, actually understanding how people are feeling, that's the stuff that actually is going to unlock your workforce to do the best stuff for you and, again, make you more money.
100%. And something just while you're saying that, how do we then navigate the people that want to work the full-time hours versus the people that want to work, say, the school hours and almost get paid the same? Like, how do we navigate that as an organization through the different hours and trying to have the same outputs?
Oh, I love that. So I just back up and give a bit more context and then I'll answer that.
Go for it.
Okay. So my leadership model, so the work I do is fundamentally in the leadership space. Working parents is part of that, but actually it's about good leadership and doing a good job at including everybody in your team. And so my leadership model is belonging, autonomy, and purpose. And so a leader needs to create an environment where their staff have a sense of belonging, as they actually belong as their whole, full, unique, authentic self, that they have autonomy, and that they have purpose. And when a leader creates that environment, their people thrive and they do their best work. So that's kind of the leadership part of it. So then into the #work school hours, the principles are around that is, one is valuing the fact people have things they care about outside of work. So that's actually giving them that sense of belonging. The second one is focusing on outputs, and I'm going to talk to that a bit in a moment. And then the third is giving them flexibility. So give people flexibility to do their outputs in and around the other things that they care about. And so that's that's like my lecture on my models. But in terms of your question, how do we balance, the full-time workers versus the part-time workers? It actually becomes kind of irrelevant, the word time. Actually, it's about, I am employing you and I'm going to pay you this salary to deliver these outputs. That's what the conversation is. It's, I'm employing you to do these outputs, go and do them. Not, I'm going to pay you to sit in that desk from 9 o'clock in the morning and you need to be there until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's sort of, I find it ridiculous, right? When we take a staff member on, and sorry, is this okay, Carina? Cut me off if I'm going on for too long.
I have to say, I love it because I working part-time compared to before I had kids when I worked full-time, I remember it'd be, say, Friday afternoon, 3 o'clock. And I remember I was like, I don't want to start anything new for the rest of the week. In my head, I'm like, I wish I was right home right now, or I could leave. I've maybe worked extra hours, but no, I had to be, this is before COVID, I had to be there physically seen. I can't leave too early and things like that. And I was like, but I've achieved everything I set out to achieve for that week. Why do I have to be here sort of almost being distracted with different things for another 2 hours? And it was just crazy. So there was so much fat in my day at times. I'm like, what am I doing? And then became a part-time mum and I was like, great, bang, 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 bang. Yeah. And I can then have that little bit more flexibility. So I 1000% agree. It's about output. And if you're being able to show that you're getting this, why not get paid for it? And rather than just going, you've got to do, as you say, you've got to sit at this desk and do it here. And just because you're here, that means you're going to be so productive. And yeah.
Yes, we're emphatically agreeing with each other, right? But I think when an organization takes on a new staff member, I think that's when it's really clear. They're like, oh, we've got so much work to do. We can't keep up with everything required of us with the current people in our team. We're going to need to bring someone else on because we need them to do these tasks. And at that point, it's actually really clear. We need these tasks done. We can't do it with the current team. We need an extra person. And you employ them to do those tasks. Yet very quickly, we kind of switch to remunerating them for their hours. And we have this ingrained idea that the number of hours you do directly correlates with the value you produce for the organization. Now, in, sort of 100 years ago, if you were, say, working in a more industrial role, there was a much stronger, again, not a direct, but a much stronger correlation between hours and outputs. But where we are now, I'm not saying that time is completely irrelevant. It's not. But we often say someone was at their desk for 8 hours and therefore they contributed more value and we pay them compared to someone who was at their desk for 6 hours. But that's ridiculous because the 6-hour person often does the exact same amount of work. As you say, they're not chewing, would you say, like fat in your day. And it's sort of to me, it's bizarre bosses care more about paying you for the hours that you did. Well, don't you want to know what I was doing during those hours? Like, shouldn't it be what was the output?
Yeah.
And so in terms of like, you said the full-time versus part-time workers, I'm like, actually just forget about those two terms. Every person, doesn't matter if they're a parent, but every person's like, okay, well, this is what I'm paid to do. And I'll do that in and around what works best for me.
Yeah, 100%. It's such an interesting discussion. So now just flipping it a bit, how do we improve it? You talk about that you've got some strategies to, and let's shake it up. Let's, change the systems. How can we do that?
Oh, yay. So I've kind of got these two different tacks. There's the one in terms of what can an individual parent do. So I can talk to that. And then the other one, which is the space that I'm more in, is how do organizations do something? Because they are the ones that have, I think, the biggest levers to pull when it comes to changing the construct. So if I'll do that one first, if that's okay. And then I'll come back to parents, because I want people who might be listening to this podcast thinking, well, that's all well and good, but I don't lead my organization, so I can't do anything. You can. So I'll do that one second. But on the organization side, I fundamentally, again, believe it's about good leadership. So it's about getting your team together and saying, hey, team, let's actually talk about what are the things we really need to achieve as a team. What are our outputs? Let's get clear on what's the stuff we need to do. What's the busy crap that we're doing that actually doesn't really add a lot of value? What are the meetings that we're having that aren't as, effective as they need to be? Really clear on what do we want to deliver. And that's all around people need to have a purpose. So I say belonging, autonomy, and purpose is my leadership model. So what's the purpose of our team? What are we out there trying to do? Really clear on that. Then it's about getting to know all your people as individuals. That's the belonging. Right, what do you care about? Let's go around the room. Okay, I've got, Sally and Sam in my team. They both have kids, so they want to, work around that. I've got John in the team who's training for a marathon, and Sandra who wants to get into couch surfing. Let's not actually judge people based on how big or important we think the thing is. Whatever people care about, how do we be like, okay, right, this is what we need to do. That's the starting point. It has to be commercially smart. I'm not saying bend over backwards and give people a free ride. It's what do we want to do? Who in our team, what are their various needs? And how do we kind of come up together with how we might be able to match that up? And how that's done with autonomy can look really different for each team. So in terms of the how do we do it, that's the starting point, is talking to the team. I think the second thing that we do is we give it a go. So I talk about a spirit of experimentation. So don't wait until you've got absolutely this perfect foolproof plan sorted, because that'll take too long and you'll get kind of stuck in inertia. But actually maybe just be like, well, why don't we just trial finishing at 3:00 on a Friday for the next month? Let's just see how that goes. Like, give it a whirl. I've had other organizations who are like, okay, let's stop having meetings at 4:00. Let's make all our team meetings within school hours. Other organizations who are like, let's actually plan our financial quarters, which we're already used to doing, quarters, around the school term, so that we have our busy periods during the term and our less busy periods during the school holidays. And so it's just about kind of making some incremental steps and seeing what we can do. But you have to start by talking to your team first and getting their buy-in. We need to achieve this. I care about the fact that you want to do these things. How do we make this work together? So that's sort of a 2-minute blurb on, some of the stuff that the organizations can do. And, I've got a whole lot more of that in the book and the courses. But on the parent side, I often have people say, yeah, I mean, that's all well and good, Ellen, but I'm not in a leadership position. I don't have the ability to do this change. And so for parents, I say, so again, I don't want to fix parents. I want to fix structures, is actually about having a conversation with your boss and saying, hey, if I've understood you correctly, these are the things you want me to achieve, X, Y, and Z. And I want to do X, Y, and Z for you really well. Like, that's important. If you're going to pay me to be in this organization, I need to add value. So I want to add value and do X, Y, and Z really well. I also have some things that are really important to me personally. Now, that could be to do with children. It could be whatever else. Can I have a try at doing things a little bit differently? I'm going to do the outputs for you, boss. It's always got to be about, the win for the boss. I'm going
to talk about in their language. Yep.
Yeah. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to deliver it. I'm going to deliver it well. I would like to do it in a slightly different manner. So maybe that's I work slightly different hours, different days, work from home, whatever it is, some kind of a different mix so that I can also do these personal things. And boss, could we trial this for, say, a month? De-risk it for them. If it's a trial, that makes it less scary for your boss to say yes to. And then in a month's time, can we actually have another meeting and talk through how it went? And, if you think I didn't meet my outputs, okay, well, then let's talk about how I can do it differently. If you think I've missed the mark, let's talk about how we problem solve it. But if I have met my outputs and you're happy with my work, then could we actually look at doing this on more of an ongoing basis? And so it's about taking your boss kind of a win-win. I want to do this great work for you. Can I do it a little bit differently? It's going to add value for my life. And I think that'll make me even better for your organization.
Such a good point. And I think really at the crux of that for both the organization and also the parent, it comes down to communication.
Yes.
Yeah. It's amazing. Just communication is like, it appears so simple, but when you get it so wrong, it really derails everything. But it's really just and it's probably that, I think even from a parent perspective, it's having that internal confidence to be able to speak up, because I'm sure if you're having that conversation with your boss, your stomach will be churning and you'll be nervous of how they're going to react. And you probably even role played it with someone else to like, oh, I'm going to have different scenarios running through your head. But it's one of those things. It's so much about communication. But I think also from a parent's perspective, particularly a mother, it's going to be about confidence as well, of confidence of speaking up, confidence of, do I think they're going to say yes? I really hope they say yes. And it's then that psychological contract that they're having of, oh, they will say yes. Okay, this is good.
It's one of the things I found really upsetting when I was doing this research is that there were all these incredible working mums, in a broad range of industries, different, skill levels, education levels. But these women who were amazing, and they were being made to feel less than about themselves. They felt that because they are now a parent, they are not as good, not as valuable to the workplace. And when you're already, it's quite vulnerable becoming a mum, especially, I don't know your experience, but I found I was really competent at work. If I did study, I was, competent. And then suddenly I'm as a mum and I don't know what I'm doing. I, struggle with breastfeeding, can't get the kid to sleep. And suddenly you've got a lot of confidence takes a dive because you're used to being successful, or if I study hard, I'll achieve it. It's not how it works with being a parent, right?
There's no study guide. You can't do a master's or a PhD in kids. It's run as you go every day.
Yes. And so you're already kind of feeling like you're not as confident in yourself because you're not always nailing it. And then you're made to feel like you're now a bit more of a liability in your team because, you might have to take time off when your kid's sick. Well, yeah, you will. That is life. The human race, we need to continue. So people need to breed. Like, it's not this like weird thing that some people do. It's actually 80% of people become parents. We need humans to breed to continue the race. And so I just think, that confidence bit upsets me, that we've kind of been given this narrative that the people that are of most value in the workplace are the ones who work the long hours. And so if you can't do that now because you're a mum, you are now kind of like a second tier worker. And my kind of framing around that is actually, when we're on parental leave, we learn a shitload of skills that add value. So, we learn how to change a nappy. That probably isn't particularly of value in the workplace, but we actually learn a lot about empathy. We learn a lot about how to read people. We manage to handle like really high pressure situations. We get incredibly good at juggling and time management. And as our kids get older and start becoming little rat bags, we learn negotiation skills. We actually learn a whole lot of different things during our journey of becoming parents that's actually incredibly valuable and useful to add to the workplace. So I think it's about reframing it instead of being like, oh, you're a parent, you're a liability. Actually, I've got some really good shit to bring to this workplace because of the fact that I've had this experience. And, don't stop the clock on my career for a year because I had parental leave. No, I learned some really good things and I'm going to, add more value.
I love it. I love it. I totally agree. I think I'm a much better employee and person because of having kids, and I see things from such a different angle. And there's times that I used to get so hung up on a topic and things like that. And now I'm like, whatevs and that, but also the emotional intelligence side of it and the resilience, I'd have to say, has taught me a lot through motherhood. Even this morning as my 3-year-old's having a meltdown. But it's one of those things. It's as you say, it's about valuing those experiences. And what we say if someone's saying, oh, well, we often look at people if they've traveled and seen other cultures. We hold that up as a good quality of, oh, yep, cool, they can culturally resilient and things like that. But I think it's also then something it's about really putting parenting skills a little bit higher up on the care factor of even at an interview of, okay, you're a kid, you're a mum, fantastic. We know that you're going to be really time efficient, you're going to be productive, you're going to be pretty emotionally intelligent. And we know that at times senior leaders, you know this better than I do through your research, those male senior leaders, often their emotional intelligence is actually pretty low, not high. So that's where by also having mothers that are in senior leadership positions, they do have the emotional intelligence that, as you say, we need that belonging, the autonomy and the purpose. It'll help bring that on as an organization.
Oh, I mean, yeah, just like hallelujah. Yeah, like, yes, Carina, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it's about not saying, oh, mothers might be a liability because they might have a sick kid. Yeah, they will have a sick kid, but they're going to bring all these other amazing qualities that add so much value. And I think the other thing is we often forget, most of our clients are parents. You know, most 80% of the population become parents. And so you actually want people that can relate with other humans. And I'm not saying for a second that non-parents aren't as valuable. I want to be clear on that. But it's about, we look at the whole person and what do they bring. So as a parent, you've got a whole lot of different skills. And one of the other skills that you bring is the fact that you've got this experience as a parent, and that adds value to the organization.
Oh, and I think also I've come across both males and females before in the workplace that almost hide that they've had children.
Yeah.
And that makes me really sad now. And this is probably going back even probably 20 years ago. They're like, oh, they don't really talk about it. But it's funny now in the workplace because people, I'm so open about, so my LinkedIn profile, I talk about being a working mum all the time. And people will endorse it and they keep, and it's funny because I've had fathers say, keep talking about what you're talking about. But at the same time, I'd love to see more fathers own it as well. So it's not just about females standing up for, you know, being a parent, but also then the males owning it to, I guess, also get that gender equity as well back into the workplace.
Yes. That's so I'm a mum, so obviously I've got a gendered lens to it. And working parents does have a gendered lens to it when we talk about the workforce.
We always think the female.
Yes. So there is, you know, it would be remiss to pretend that gender wasn't part of the conversation. But the important part is as you say, is dads are parents too. And the more that organizations can do to support all of their people, again, people, so not even just parents, but all of their people, and then both or all of their genders of parents, the better it's going to be for everybody. I've actually, what I'm loving is the work that I'm doing. I mean, I was in the army, right? Male dominated sector. A lot of the work that I do is in the food and fiber sector. So farming, another male dominated sector. I'm doing work in engineering, another male dominated sector. I don't know how that kind of happens, but I just often end up in those spaces. And I'm teaching leadership. So again, I'm not teaching a working mum thing. I'm teaching leadership. But what I love is that there are all these men who are like, yeah, we get it. And they even say, it's quite funny, sorry, slight tangent, but with dads, it kind of goes one of two ways. So either men who are fathers become like overly praised, like, oh, wow, he's such an amazing dad. Look at him leaving work to pick up his kid from school. Like, oh, isn't he amazing? And I've had fathers say to me that like it actually annoys them. They're like, my wife doesn't get revered like that. She gets, you know, the sideways glances and the disapproving looks, yet I get like heralded as an amazing person. So that's kind of one way that it can go for dads. The other way that it can go, though, is almost like, what the heck's wrong with you, dude? Like, you want to take some time with your children? Oh, you're going to totally, like, what's your wife doing? That kind of stuff. And it can be really isolating for men who almost like have some kind of sense of masculinity taken away from them if they want to work part-time or be more involved with the kids. And so neither of those two options are good for women. And the second one obviously is not good for men either. And so, yeah, it's about valuing the fact that they're both parents and we need to make this far more equitable.
Yeah. So going forward, what are some tips and hints or something for women particularly working mums, this is the audience of this podcast, that they can go like, right, is it the personal belief that, yes, don't devalue your parental leave, you've got skills, have the conversation. What are the things that people can you go, right, I'm going to do this? They're feeling revved up from this conversation like I am.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, all right, I'll just be cheeky to start with. Buy my book and my online course. There's so much stuff in there. And actually, I'm being smart, but I will say I do want people to read the book and watch the course and do the workbook. I do. But my goal isn't to sell books and to sell courses. My goal genuinely is to change the working world. And I'm like unapologetic about being terrifyingly ambitious to do this. So when I say, please buy my stuff, it's not because I want to sell you some crap. It's because I want you to consume this information so you can change things for yourself. So that's the first one. But the other two takeaways, I think, is around how you can actually have a conversation with your boss that's focused on outputs and the win-win. So kind of when I did that role play before, hey, boss, I think you want me to do this. It's really about framing it, not about hours. We need to forget about how many hours does a person do. It's about what I'm going to deliver. And if you know, every person who's listening to this podcast, I just know that you're damn good at your job. You know, I don't believe for a second that there's a bunch of people on this listening to this who are slackers or who just milk it or take the piss. Like, these are people that actually want to contribute. So I think it's about focusing on what you contribute, not the hours. It's about what are your outputs, what do you deliver, how do you add value? And then have that conversation with your boss framed that way on outputs. And the second thing is what you actually touched on when you asked the question, Carina, is about having like just valuing yourself. And it's so easy to say this and so much harder to do it in practice. I preach this stuff and I don't even pretend that I'm an expert on it. I'm not. I have days when I feel, less confident. So I think it's about talking about it. You said before, keep having the conversation and why you keep doing the podcast that you're doing, Carina, and the work you're doing. When we keep talking about it and we get validation from each other, I think that helps us get more confidence. So I talk about this stuff and I have similar, people saying, keep talking about it. And I'm like, okay, all right, that gives me some confidence. Like, yes, this is important. And then when you have enough people kind of getting around it, like, yeah, this is important. And actually, yeah, I am valuable as a working mum. I'm not a liability because I have to tend to kids sometimes. Actually, I'm efficient. In fact, I'm far more efficient than most of these other fuckers in the work. Sorry. No, most of these other, delete that one if you like. Most of these other people who aren't putting in the same amount of effort, like, actually, I'm damn good at my job. I add value. And the fact that I have kids to tend to means I'm really good in a crisis. I am really good at dealing with people that are like fighting with each other. I'm really good at conflict management. I'm, as you say, really good at emotional intelligence. And so it's just remember that. And sometimes it's hard to do, but keep listening to, your podcast, Carina, and other things out there. Like, working mums, we are bloody good for this, or for society. And we need to remember that.
Oh, here. I think we need to be telling that. And I think it's probably the biggest takeaway is just keep reminding yourself how amazing you are. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, and that you can have that flexibility and work the school hours and work those, and change the social constructs that we've, been trying to live with for over 100 years in a very different society. Even societies change even the last 5 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just believe, like, as a working parent, it is tough. And I know that's sort of why we're talking about this, because it's tough. But I'm such an optimist. I'm like, it can be better. I'm so excited that it is. But there's actually this really, sensible, rational, logical, commercially smart way that things can be better. And so, yeah, you can't change the world by yourself. So more people like this collaborating, pushing for this stuff, talking about it. I think that's how we all together change the world.
I 100% agree. We need to be able to be, shouting this from the rooftops. And it's something that happens across all parts of the organization. It's not just at the top senior leaders. It's not just the middle management, but it's also people on the ground. It's the fathers, it's the mothers, it's the people that wanting to go play soccer. We won't get change. And if you look at history, if people just kept doing what they were told and just yes people, we would not be where we are today. Our world socially has been disrupted because of people that are wanting to change the status quo. So I think from a working parent perspective, it's, if we want something, And it's also about what's good for you and your family. This may not be good for everyone, things like that, but it's also sitting down and working out with your partner what's going to work for you. How do you also want it? You don't want to get to retirement and say, oh, well, I wish I'd, I often say you never got you on your tombstone. It never says, I wish I'd worked more hours.
Yes.
It's usually, I wish I'd spent more time with my kids or something like that. But it's also finding that balance. Like, I know that I'm a better mum by working.
Yes.
And I'm not ashamed to say it, but I'm a much better person. I've got a little bit for me, and my whole life cannot be my kids. I could not do kids 24/7. I'm sorry, but I know everyone's different, but that's for me personally. And that's what works for me and my family. But yeah, and it's also about, as you said, valuing yourself, but also looking at the outputs and also working out what you want to do. Don't be afraid for it. Back yourself.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for better. And if you know that what you're presenting is a win-win, you're not asking for a handout. You're not asking for something, lucky that other people don't get. You're asking for a really reasonable outcome to deliver great work for your organization. So ask.
Exactly. What a good way to say it. Now, Ellen, what do you do for self-care and to fill your cup?
Oh gosh. Well, I love music and dancing. And so I go to Zumba once a week and I just love it. That's like that's only an hour a week, but that is really fun. I do a lot of walking. So a lot of my meetings, if they're on the phone, I will walk for my meetings, and I really enjoy that. And I have big, deep conversations with people. So I have to say, Carina, although technically this is work, actually this is the kind of stuff that fills my cup. I love talking with people that are excited about new ways of doing things. That fills my cup.
Oh, amazing.
And obviously my kids, I should have said that too, my kids.
Sometimes kids can deplete the cup, so all good.
I mean, yeah, kids, sometimes they fill it, sometimes they drain it, but yeah, that's a given. So
Exactly. Now, tell us a little bit more about the book and how we can get a copy, and also the courses.
Oh, yes. So, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So the book and the course are both available on my website, which is ellenjoanford.com. So that's, my full name, ellenjoanford.com. And that's where you can get the book and both the online course for parents and the online course for people leaders.
Amazing. Well, best of luck for everything. I have to say, I've absolutely loved this chat. And I have to say, it's one of the best parts of the podcast is speaking to like-minded people about this, but also different views and how everyone's got a little bit of a different way of navigating some of these spaces. And I think, as you said, it's not just about the individual, but it's also about the organization and really changing those social constructs of what we have in those systems. So I really look forward to when we have changed the system. I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when we change the systems and we can have those environments and things like that. Maybe it's around when our kids are older, but look, if we don't advocate for this, nothing will happen. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
I love it. Thank you so much for having me, Carina. I really love this. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Working Mama podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mama social channels. Remember, Mama is MUMMA, or website www.workingmama.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you, and see you next time. Have a great week.